Welcome to ZombieChickenTaco.com. This is Lesson 1, Video 3. Today we're going to be covering grids and geometry types. We're going to actually hit on filters too in this tutorial. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is the grid. I failed to mention this in my first tutorial, even though I had it outlined, was if you hit the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you have different grid types that your brushes snap to. Grid 1 is your real extreme detail. You can go a little bit smaller than that. I'm not going to get into that because I find it useless. But you want to do grid 4 is your standard for laying out any type of geometry in your map, buildings, ground, pathways. It's just a great place to get started. Easy to manipulate vertices this way and get a nice big blocky solid building. That's just the best way to explain it. Okay, we got geometry types. Want to touch on this. This is crucial in Radiant and how video games work. Structural is your default when you place something down. If you notice, you have black lines highlighting your object. What we're going to do is we're going to drop a couple of these stamps down here. I'm going to put 4 different types down to explain the 4 different types of geometry that you're going to use in making a map. And you do want to make use of this and get prepared to make use of this early in your mapping. Otherwise, you're going to suffer later on, especially if you come up with a big map and then find out it does not want to compile because it just says there's way too much structural geometry in it, and the geometry vertices and collision vertices are all used up. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to select this top left one by hitting shift and left click. We should have the shift left click down by now. Been explaining that in the first couple tutorials. We're going to select the first box and right click on it. What we've got is we've got 4 different types here. We've got structural, detail, weapon clipping, and non-colliding. Structural, which is what the default is, this box, blocks any of the viz or the rendering in the compiling stage. When you're playing the game and you're looking at a wall, typically you don't want to see the other side of the wall and the other side of the wall and the other side of the wall. It'll slow your game down big time because video cards aren't meant to handle all of the triangles in your map all at once. So structural is the concrete block that blocks the view from the other side. So if I were to actually change my view by hitting Control Tab and scaling this up and out, there's a big structural wall. You shouldn't be able to see on the other side of it in game. In Radiant, it's a little bit different in the actual editing tutorial. I'm going to hit Control Z and I'm going to undo that and put that back to normal. The second thing we want to cover is detail. Right, let's select the next brush and we're going to go to make detail. If we hit escape and deselect that, you'll notice it has a green outline to it. This green outline tells you that it's detail. And now we're going to hit on filters real quick. If you hit the F button on your keyboard, let's try that again. I run dual screen. I highly recommend it if you have an NVIDIA card. Get yourself a 17-inch monitor, throw it off on the side. Makes great for editing. Not so much on the video recording because then your desktop space is like 1600 by whatever. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to hit the F for filters. If you look in the top part, the geometry, this is what we're working with. And if you look towards structural and detail, structural's gone, filtering, detail's gone, filtered. Cool. Now that we got that out of the way, simple filters. I'm going to drag that off the screen there. Now the next thing we're going to cover is making it a weapon clip. Weapon clip is what you'd want to do for things that are slightly outside of the playing area that are not being interacted by the artificial intelligence or by the player. Hence, a lot of detailed items will be that way. If it's in the clipped area, it's say if I were to create a hedgestone and I made the entire thing this weapon clip, only bullets would bounce off of it and zombies would walk on through. They wouldn't even care about it. Same with the player, you'll walk on through it. Kind of strange to see bullets exploding there. So finally, and the last thing we've got is non-colliding. So we're going to go ahead and select, right click, go to non-colliding here, or in the 2D, create non-colliding. Just make sure it is selected. That'll give us this yellowish orange brown color, whatever you want to call that. It looks orange yellow to me. So we've got a dark green for detail, an olive green for weapon clip, and finally non-colliding is this yellow. It kind of gradually goes down from the black being structural. Non-colliding is what you would use on the very, very outside of your map. If you had a building that was never accessed by anybody, it's just for looks, it helps flesh out your scene, you're going to most likely make it weapon colliding, because you really don't want to have your network processing data upon a collision of a bullet that's outside of range and it hits some building off in the distance that nobody's going to see the effect. So why should it calculate the actual hit on that? So you make it non-colliding. Other things you would make non-colliding, I don't know, pipe fittings, bolt fittings, just little itty bitty minuscule things that you don't ever come in contact with, but they are there for visual detail. Those are the 4 different types of geometry that you'll be using. These are, again, just your standard drawn brushes. And if we pull up filters, go ahead and put that right in the middle there, and we're going to see weapon clipping, non-colliding, translucent, none of those because we're not using translucent, and detail. Those are the 4 structural. Those are the 4 that we are working with in the filters. That helps get that out of there. And if we want to refresh on the layers real quick, bring up the layers, filters, layers. Okay, in layers, what we're going to do is create a new layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this detail. I've done this in a couple of maps, and I would probably call it detail room 1 or whatnot. So what we do is we select the detail brush, and we right click, add selected brushes, and we can hide it there as well. I prefer filtering, but if you have 3 areas and each of them have detailed brushes and you just want to look at area 1's brushes, you would use the layers to filter that out rather than the filters. I hope that made sense. That was video 3. I'm telling you, these are speed tutorials and we're just going to nail through them. Hope you guys are getting a lot from this. Talk to you later. Catch me on the forums.